Welcome again, students, to the class of VA Part 2. In the last video, we had studied about William Wordsworth's The World is Too Much with Us. That is the Part 1, where we understood about the background to this beautiful sonnet by Wordsworth. In this video, we will now study in detail about the sonnet, and this is the Part 2 and the concluding lecture. So here you can see in the sonnet, The World is Too Much with Us, how this 14-line sonnet has this rhyme scheme, or in the octet there is A, B, B, A, B, B, A rhyme scheme, and in the following sestet, that is the last 6 lines, there is a different rhyme scheme. The world is too much with us, late and soon, getting and spending we lay waste our powers. Little we see in nature that is ours. So the rhyming is between powers and hours. We have given our hearts away, a sordid boon, which rises with late and soon. The sea that bears her bosom to the moon, the winds that will be howling at all hours, and are upgathered now like sleeping flowers. For this, for everything, we are out of tune. It moves us not. Great God, I'd rather be a pagan, suckled in a creed outworn. So might I, standing on this pleasant lea, have glimpses that would make me less forlorn. Have sight of Pretus rising from the sea, or hear old Triton blow his wreathed horn. So the first 2 lines, they themselves begin with the crux of the problem which Wordsworth feels humanity is facing. That is, the world is too much with us, getting and spending. We lay waste our powers. So here, in the first 2 lines, Wordsworth he focuses upon the price of material gain and industrial progress in the is the human heart itself, which is a symbol of life and emotion. But at the stake of that, humanity is running after material wealth, and this is something which has led us to move away from nature, and we are out of tune of with the nature. The poem basically explores how modernity has eroded not just people's connection to nature but also people's sense of individual identity. And the poem subtly suggests that modern city life has led us away from the experience which we can gain from the beauty of nature around us. And you will find that in the first 8 lines throughout, we find that the use of the collective pronoun we, as they reveal how, as society grows, the individual slowly fades away. And in an industrial society, we lay waste our powers, and the powers is the skill or ability to find an individuality in each one. So the first 2 lines set in the basic problem about moving away from the natural beauty. And here, by focusing the powers on material objects, people grow unaware of their wider and arguably more important surroundings. And the result is that nothing in nature or elsewhere is ours. That is a world where everything can be won or lost in an instant. So, through these 2 lines, we can also relate this situation with our own lives in the present times too, because we find that uh, we have become too busy in our rituals of routine of our daily lives, but we are unable to have time to sit and relax and see the beauty of nature that is around us. So there is a time to stop from this whole rat race and see the beauty of the nature which gives us that solace of spirituality. So in these 2 lines, That is, little we see in nature that is ours. We have given our hearts away, a sordid boon. So here Wordsworth concentrates in these two lines. What have we gained after running after materialism or material wealth? So what we have gained is actually a sordid boon. So boon is a gain, but sordid is something which is dirty or bad. So this is clubbing of two opposite words. And here Wordsworth wants to very deeply question that when we are running after material wealth, what are we gaining and what do we lose? So the price that we pay after running after material gain and industrial progress is our the beauty of our own heart, because we stop looking around in a way a human being should, with the heart of life and emotion. And that is in therefore the exchange we have is something which is sordid, it is dirty and immoral. So in exchange for industrial progress, humanity has reduced themselves to an almost less than human state. So the speaker, that is the poet, suggests that this loss of humanity outweighs the material gain. So, in these two lines, Wordsworth evokes the different elements of nature which humanity has an opportunity to appreciate, but we have no time to sit and relax and see these elements of nature. So the poet talks about this sea that bears her bosom to the moon, the winds that will be howling at all hours. So the different elements of nature which um, bring solace to our heart, but unfortunately we cannot appreciate them. In the next two lines also, Wordsworth continues with the various beautiful nature that surrounds us, but unfortunately, people have no time to pay attention to these elements. And he states, and are up gathered now like sleeping flowers. For this, for everything, we are out of tune. So we are not aligned to the beauty that God has created in the form of natural elements, but in the rush of gaining more and more, we become empty within. So it's a paradox. And this happens, according to Wordsworth, because of our disconnect with the elements of nature, because, according to Wordsworth, they are themselves manifestation of the godly being. So if we do not connect ourselves with them, then we are unable to connect to the higher being. So this is something which is unfortunate, that we have become out of tune to the elements of nature. So in the next six lines, as we come towards the sestet, the poet also shows his resignation with the very bleak situation, because he states, "It moves us not, great God. I would rather be a pagan, suckled in a creed outworn." So, towards the sestet, in the final lines, the poem describes the cultural loss Britain is going through, humanity is going through during this phase of materialism and industrialization. And there is this tone of resignation where the poet feels it's a permanent loss. And therefore, the speaker wants to move towards, wants to invoke Greek paganism, introducing a version of society in which the elements of nature were respected and they played a larger role in human life. But now, with industrialization, modernization, this pagan tradition is a creed which is now outworn. It's a relic and no longer useful. So now, once the speaker acknowledges the uselessness of the past traditions, so he says that his wishes came across as more fanciful than serious when he states, I would rather be a pagan. And so might I do not represent what the speaker believes is possible, but rather what he or she wishes were still possible. So this final cestus presents nature through pagan mythology, and Wordsworth argues that although the pagan view is outworn, it is at least preferable to the kind of alienation from nature that he sees in contemporary society. And here, therefore, the speaker invokes Greek paganism. As I have just mentioned, that it was a version of society in which nature played a large role in human life, which now is no more there. So might I, standing on this pleasant lea, have glimpses that would make me less forlorn. So Wordsworth, being disgusted with the trend of the nation, would prefer to be a pagan who will see God in every object of nature. So, as we have just studied in the former lines, paganism is a kind of pantheism in which every object of nature is invested with the form of god or goddess. So, thus Wordsworth would be happy to stand on the pleasant lea means meadow and enjoy its beauty and also enjoy these elements of nature. So, and become less despairful or mournful. So, how nature gives him this feeling of solace. The final two lines of the sonnet have sight of Phreatus rising from the sea, or hear old Triton blow his wreathed horn. So, here Wordsworth evokes the image of the Greek god, sea god Phreatus from the Greek mythology, who had the ability to prophesy the future or predict the future, but did not like doing it. So if someone grabbed a hold of him, he tried to make him predict the future. He would change his shape and try to get away. So the modern word protein, meaning variable or changing a lot, comes from his name. And Triton was a son of Poseidon, the Greek god of the sea, and he had a conch shell that he blew into in order to excite or calm the waves. And the word wreathed means something like twisted, having coils. The wreathed horn is a reference to the Triton's conch shell. And so Wordsworth here, he would be happy to stand on the pleasant meadow and enjoy its beauty and also have the vision of Proetus, the sea god, rising from the waves and be glad and thrilled to hear old Triton blow his horn. So actually, these two last lines also reflect that Wordsworth must have been aware of the unstoppable growth of industry and mass production and materialism, and just like we read in William Blake, his poetry, that the concern of these poets was that the for the future spiritual state of the people. And so his introduction of these Greek gods like Proetus, the ever-changing, frightening, prophetic, ancient god of sea, who would not like to predict anything. And it reminds us of the sacrifices we all have to pay if we are out of tune with Mother Nature. Like always, let us also now focus our attention on the figures of speech used in this sonnet by Wordsworth. So we have already mentioned that the use of the metaphor, we have given our hearts away, a sordid boon. So here, like earlier, we had read about oxymoron in the poem by William Blake's London. We had also heard about this figure of speech because these are the bringing together of two opposite words. Sordid suggests the worst aspects of human nature, such as immorality, selfishness, and greed, while a boon is something that functions as a blessing or benefit. So, this is an example of oxymoron. The contradiction between the meanings of the word suggests that materialism is a destructive and corrupt blessing, which the Industrial Revolution has produced. It emphasizes the tension between the good exterior and the sordid truth behind materialism. On an exterior level, material goods bring pleasure and are a symbol of man's progress. However, in truth, they feed the worst aspects of humanity, and therefore the poet calls them a sordid boon. And this is something which we can very clearly relate to our own lives in the present times, where we are always in a rush and a race and unable to get that peace of mind or solace for which we human beings are made. Let us also read something about the aspects of repetition and rhyming scheme, which although we have already studied in the initial slides. The repetitive rhyme scheme in the octave A, B, B, A, and the use of the word pairs such as getting and spending, late and soon, they emphasize the monotonous nature of modern life and materialism. So, how the form of poetry also adds to the meaning. Getting and spending is a cluster of longer emphasized words with many consonants, also possibly emphasizing this view. So, in a sense, materialism is just that getting and spending, it is devoid of emotion or a true fulfilling purpose in life. In many ways, the stereotypes of man and woman mirror the difference between the neoclassical and romantic period, between civilized and nature. Men in this context are associated with rationality, strength, order, and power, whereas women are associated with emotion and imagination. So the poet, in his sonnet, raises many issues. We come to an end of this class on Wordsworth's beautiful sonnet, The World is Too Much with Us. And in the next class, we will read and understand about another such a wonderful persona in the world of literary field. Thank you.